now what we want to look at then, now that we've got these tools of what our government can do, we want to go and we're going to look at this whole idea of management of the economy. So, prior to the Great Depression, we didn't really have this expectation. I'm sorry, I know that's probably making you dizzy. But now, there is an expectation that the government actually manages the economic problems that we have. And so what we're going to look at here is we want to look at fiscal policy versus monetary policy. Are any of you taking economics this semester? Okay, so this is going to be like cake for you, because you guys spend a whole lot of time on that. And this is one area where Mr. Harkle and I will really overlap, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and he's going to spend weeks on it. So we are going to look at it from different perspectives, though, because we want to look at it in terms of, politically, what's happening. So fiscal policy is specifically going to be the government, specifically the president and the Congress, using their tools to try to control what happens in the economy, okay? So, for example, if inflation is basically caused by, too much money, right? There's, so much money circulating, everybody wants stuff, and so prices go up and up and up and up. So what would you need to do to stop inflation, or to slow inflation?
Take money out of it.
That's it. You got to take money out of the economy. Awesome. Look at that. Economics genius. So you want to get money out of the economy. You just want to counteract it. So what the president and Congress could do is they could either A, spend less money on programs, or raise our taxes. Okay? And so in essence, that's what fiscal policy is. It's always doing counter what's going on to try to control economic problems. So if you have unemployment, then you would lower taxes so people would have more money, or you would increase government spending. So an example would be after 9/11, in October of 2001, obviously they were really concerned in our country about people not going out and doing stuff, and if the middle class stopped spending money, if people stopped going to the mall and going to the movies and taking vacations, our country's going to have a real problem. So the president and Congress authorized basically this October tax rebate, and so every person who had paid taxes, and it could have even been people that didn't, I'm not sure, got a $300 check in the mail, right? But the hope was that we would take that $300 and we would put it in the economy, and I sure did. My now husband and boyfriend, we went to Disneyland, or Disney World, right? Which obviously it took more than $600 to go to Disney World, but the idea is that's what they want to happen. You can't guarantee that people will do that, but that's the whole idea. You also have this idea sometimes of supply-side fiscal policy. Do you guys remember learning about Reaganomics last year in U.S. history? So it's that idea, that government should do whatever it can to encourage suppliers to create jobs. So that means lower their regulations, cut taxes, do everything you can to make it so that suppliers can create all these jobs, and then the economy will grow. Annalise. Constant management is what that is, okay? There is also another way of managing the economy, and that's called monetary policy. Monetary policy is conducted by the Federal Reserve System. The Federal Reserve is part of the government, but it is called an independent agency. It is incredibly removed from politics. It's basically like they're the nation's bank, okay? Since they're in charge of the banks, they do this kind of stuff. They set interest rates. So if you want to go out and you're going to buy a car, the interest rate, if you're going to get a loan for a car, the interest rate that you're going to be charged is based on what the Federal Reserve has set interest rates to be. It's not that they set it for every person, but they set a base rate, and then that's going to translate and affect other rates based on what your credit rating is, etc. And again, I'm way oversimplifying it. Mr. Harklaw will teach you in much more in depth, but that's basically what it is. They buy and sell those bonds. So that original chart that I showed you that had the 47% of our debt is held by U.S. financial institutions, well, you guys, they buy and sell those bonds to manipulate the amount of money that's flowing in our economy. And it's the same thing as taxes and spending, except that it's more direct, because it literally will affect the flow of money. They're not printing money. They're not making more or making less physically. They're just affecting the rate at which it flows, how much is circulating. So I wanted to show you kind of a diagram just so you can see how the Federal Reserve works, and then I have some questions for you. So when you look at the Federal Reserve at this diagram, and again, this is in your textbook, if you look, the Board of Governors, that's the top, and we have somebody called the Chair of the Federal Reserve, right? And they're kind of set economic, banking policy for the country. This says that it's a 7-member board. They're appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. That's it. But they are an independent regulatory agency. They are not part of Congress. They are not part of the political part of the executive branch. Back when W was in office, the chair of the Federal Reserve criticized the tax cuts that were passed after 9/11. He said they were a bad idea. And then when his seat came up for renewal, because Alan Greenspan was so popular, W had to appoint him, even though he had criticized his economic policies, because he was so incredibly popular, like it would have hurt W if he hadn't appointed him. Can you think of why we would want this to be independent of politics and different than back up here with fiscal policy? Like, why would you want the people in charge of your money policy to be different than the people that are in charge of these political things?
Because they can make fast decisions.
Maybe. Roberto, if you're a member of the Senate and you know that the right thing to do for the economy is to raise taxes, are you going to do it?
No, because
What?
people don't like it.
People don't like tax raises, right? And so politically, fiscal policy is difficult to implement because parts of it are very unpopular. Monetary policy, you've got people that are making sometimes difficult decisions that are not held accountable politically. Public opinion doesn't matter to them. They're not reliant on people to get their job. They have accountability to the government because they require presidential appointment and Senate confirmation. But if we get, like when we have an election in 2016, that doesn't mean that the Board of Governors is going to change. Like that doesn't, they're not meant to be part of the politics. We want them removed because I don't want politicians in charge of our economy and like the flow of our money. That's a very scary thing. And so they were supposed to be as apolitical as possible and removed from politics. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're not going to have time to do this today, but next class I've got some simulations online that we'll look at. Hopefully I'll be able to get the Chromebooks again, and we will conduct those simulations for fiscal policy and monetary policy. All right, here's what I want you guys to do. We did not finish today. So there in your notes, I want you to make a note. If you look on the board, pages 490 to 508 in your textbook cover what we talked about today and then what we have yet to talk about. If you feel like you need extra practice, you need to kind of review because I gave you a ton of information today. Skimming that or reading it in depth and taking notes would not hurt you by any means. Since I didn't finish today, next class we're writing FRQs. So I am going to allow you to use any notes that you have taken on your FRQs. Okay? You'll have one about Congress, one about economic policy making. So anything that you have that is like in your handwriting can be used. You can't print out the Quizlet and use the Quizlet. I got asked if I handwrite it. If it's handwritten, you may use it. All right? Hold on real quick, you guys. You're not going to have as long of a time, though, because I've got to finish talking about economic policy, and we've got a few other things to talk about. So if you haven't looked at stuff, you're gonna struggle, but at least you'll have notes and you'll have a place to look at information to go and write those FRQs. Does that seem like a fair trade-off? Okay. Then your test is going to be on Friday. I will offer a test review Thursday after school. I will offer a test review Friday morning before school. I hope to see more of you here than I did last time. Okay, what was your question, Victor? They're on. They've been on forever. Yep.